Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to this evening entitled Women and Honor. Honor and women. Whichever way you say it, it means the same thing. That there is a need for us at this time, more than ever, to ensure that we bring about awareness of the plight of women globally. My name is Renee Webb. I'm happy to be here. I organized this event because of a number of reasons, actually. It's one of my passions. Human rights has always been a passion of mine. Fighting for the rights of women has always been a passion of mine. And recently, I gave a talk at RSC entitled The Last Waltz of the Victims, Women and Power. And in that speech, I pointed out what was happening with women globally. And as a consequence of that, I got so much feedback from people, both who were in the audience as well as people who were streaming the event. And the consensus was that the subject was so important that I should take it further. So this is one of the first steps that we're taking to make sure that we bring global awareness of the plight of women, particularly with respect to violence and abuse, and the position that women find ourselves in as second-class citizens. And that second-class citizenry is actually at all levels of society, whether you look at corporations, whether you look at religion and how that is practiced, whether you look at how the family is dispelled in different communities. In some communities, women do have equal rights, so we say. But if you look at the statistics very often, it doesn't bear out to what we believe is actually so. In part of my presentation, I talked about where America was in terms of equal rights for women. And people were really shocked to see, for example, that when it comes to political empowerment, America is 60th in the world globally when it comes to women empowerment, only having 20% representation in the House of Congress, for example, only 18% in the Senate. And when you look at women in corporations heading up company, it's a dismal 5%. So there's a lot to be done, and there's so many areas that we need to work in. So my mission, and the mission of those who are working with me, because there's a team effort, and we'll talk about that as we go on tonight. But the idea is to bring awareness and to start here in little old Yelm, because that's where we happen to be, but also people in this community I find are very conscious of what's happening and want to do something to change whatever area it is that they are passionate about. For me, I'm passionate about human rights and particularly women's rights, so hence we're here tonight. And this is the first of a number of events that we are going to have. We're going to do an event every 3 months, every 2 to 3 months, and around the whole issue of women, different aspects of women. So you have much more to look forward to. Tonight we're going to watch first a film. I'll give you the format for the whole evening. First we're going to watch a film entitled Honor Diaries. And Honor Diaries actually looks at some of the violence and abuse that is happening to women globally. It is very moving, sometimes very emotional, but I think you'll learn a lot from it and hopefully take action in some way, shape, or form in your own personal life. Obviously, a call to action is always what we hope takes place as a consequence of these talks. So first we're going to see the movie Honor Diaries. Then Paulina Amador is going to come up and she is going to launch our website, actually show you what we are actually doing online. Our website, we also have a Facebook page as well, which is going really, really well, but I don't want to take Paulina's thunder. She will tell you all about that. And then we will have a 20-minute break. And during the break, we will get ready for the second half of the evening, and I will introduce the speakers at that time who will talk about their own personal experience and their journey. So Paulina is a passionate business entrepreneur who specializes in multimedia. She is the owner of Holographics. She has participated in various international marketing projects, such as Four Seasons Resorts, Jack Nicklaus Signature Golf Courses, Christie International, affiliated with great luxury real estate brokers of the same. And she's also worked with many clients in Europe, in the United States, and Canada. Holographics is a group of socially conscious creative entrepreneurs and media experts who brings you the latest, most advanced technology and ideas in the world of media. They provide a bridge between your vision and your dream of a better world with their technological expertise to make an impact which makes a difference for you, the consumer, in your pocket and in your heart and your community. She has applied her perspective for the last 15 years through the arts, photography, web design, graphic, and editorial design. She is dedicated to have a conscious impact in the world of media. Breaking the rules of composition, her images reflect a daring style. She challenges the boundaries of linear perspectives and flatland realities in order to celebrate life as seen through the soul. Paulina is a visionary behind the graphics and design site and is committed to her efforts to help women out of the quagmire of discrimination. Paulina helped me do my presentation at RSC recently, and we've been a team ever since. Paulina's going to talk about the website.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, everyone, for being here and making a huge difference in support of gender equality. Did you know that today, women in some countries still can't vote, become the Dalai Lama, a pope, a priest, or even become a leader in her country? Women today are still not considered equal in governments, in politics, in religion, and in our own families. I am so honored to present to you our new beautiful website, Freedom for Women Today. Our mission and commitment is to being a catalyst in promoting awareness to the cause and effect of discrimination of women globally through the dissemination of knowledge and information. We will bring awareness and create change. We're very excited that you support the movement. That is not our movement. It is for all of you. In every section of our website, there is the opportunity for you to have your own voice, to let us know what you think. We want to hear you as well. In the lead up to March 8th of next year, 2016, the International Women's Day, we will create a global movement for the sake of freedom for all. We encourage you all, not only women, but men, to take further action, to organize events that inspire you. It may be a moment of silence, it may be in your own disciplines, and walks, religious service, speaking events, blogging, or social media. In these awakenings, it is so crucial that you all participate, because from this group, we can make a huge impact into the world. We recently opened up our Facebook page, and we're so proud to tell you that in a week, we reached over 1,500 likes, just this early afternoon, so who knows where we are now. We had over 55,000 posts reach to people. So keep it going, and please do share it with your friends. It makes a difference. And our goal is to have 1 million minimum as soon as we can. These are very exciting times. It is time that we all, men and women, live our own truth fearlessly. We must become our own heroes. The future is right here, right now, in our eyes. Thank you so much.
So as Paulina said, we launched our site a week ago, and we've already had 55,000 posts viewed. Isn't that exciting? I mean, come on, people. That's in 1 week. So, yep, we're planning on reaching 1 million by March 8th, 2016, International Women's Day, and we're doing all sorts of activities, posts, etc., not just here in Yelm, but elsewhere, to bring about the plight of women globally and the need for change. So right now, we're going to take a 20-minute break. I'm going to introduce the first of 3 speakers that we have tonight. We have women who will speak about their own personal journey, women from our community who we can all relate to because in some way, shape, or fashion, we are them. So our first speaker this evening is Sonya Debssi. Sonya was born into an Egyptian-Turkish family. She has personally experienced the many challenges that being a woman in a Muslim culture can provide. She describes her personal story as a journey from Islam to freedom. She has been a private school teacher for the last 10 years, teaching young children about neuroscience and the power of focused intent. Sonya's mission has been to help revolutionize education so that children have the opportunity to grow up to be self-empowered, confident, and joyful learners. When asked the question of Sonya, which I did pose, what does honor mean to her? She stated, and I quote, "Honor doesn't have anything to do with any man, any person, any religion, any country or culture. The greatest honor and dignity is to be your true self. That makes a woman beautiful. It's that simple." Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Sonya.
Thank you for coming. It is my great honor to be speaking to you today, and I hope that at the end of my talk, you will understand what I mean by honor. I was born in Germany. I don't have a German accent. My father is Egyptian, my mother is Turkish. They moved to Germany, I think, in the 70s. I am the second of 4 children, 3 girls and 1 boy. And my family's religion is the Islam. And of course, it is normal that the children follow the family's religion and tradition. I do not remember much from my early childhood, except I loved my father, and I still do. He is a source of strength and knowledge to me, and he loved to share his thoughts. He would always say, "Sonya, I want you to have a better life than me." emphasized that learning and knowledge was important. He also always said, Sonya, I want you to stand on your own 2 feet and always have money in your pocket. I'm working on that. I'm standing quite tall, but I'm working on that. And it seemed that my parents' goal was for their children to have the life that they themselves could not have. It was when I got older that things were a little bit different and difficult. Father, coming from the old tradition, even when I was younger, if we did something they didn't like, I had to go and get the spoon and hold out my hand, and I got hit. And I would, like I said, I was very inquisitive, and I would say, Father, why do you hit us? And he would say, Sonya, I sometimes am helpless and don't know what to do. And I realized that he himself was in conflict with his own culture. But when it came to honor, there was no compromise. And our behavior directly reflected upon the honor of the family. I remember my older sister, she's the oldest, so she was the first of everything, got beat up by my father terribly because she tried some alcohol at a party. And as a young girl, watching her get hurt, being completely helpless, and pleading with my parents and saying, what are you doing? She needs your help. You need to talk to her. She's desperate. And I was only met by the stare looks on their faces, and they had nothing to say. So, like I said, I was born and raised in a German community, going to a German school. I had German friends. It was a very different culture. So I had an insight into diversity and into different knowledge. But the Egyptian Turkish traditions were kept alive within the 4 walls of our home, and it was important. We could make our family proud, or we could shame them. My sister had shamed them and was punished terribly. And when you dishonor your family, there's not much forgiveness, if any. When I was 11, I got my period for the very first time. And it was at that time that I learned that I was considered unclean and impure if I had my period, and I was not allowed to touch the Quran, which is the holy book of the Islam. And imagine for an 11-year-old girl thinking that she was dirty. I didn't understand that. All I knew was that if I touched that book, that I would get punished by God, so I didn't touch it. I had a very inquisitive mind. I loved to learn. As I got older, I got more involved with my friends and my community around me. I loved to swim and train to be a lifeguard, and when it came time for me to do duty at the lake, my father told me I can't do that, and I said, why? And he said, because you are a girl, and you will meet boys, and you will have a boyfriend, and you cannot do that because you would dishonor the family. So I was not allowed to continue. My virtue and sexuality was directly tied to my family's honor. That was very contradictory to me again. I was allowed to learn, but I wasn't allowed to live it, and to live and express in freedom. What was expected of me was to get married and have children so that my parents could be proud. I don't blame them for that. I understand. And it was expected of them too when they were younger. I, of course, was to marry an Egyptian man who followed the family's religion, except my mother would argue that I was supposed to marry a Turkish man. As long as they approved of them. I most certainly did not want to do either of that. What I wanted to express to you guys and all of those people watching this video in the future is what such a life can do to the human soul and the human spirit. Somebody that has been growing up to think for herself and has had insights into different cultures and education, yet has also experienced the limits of religion and tradition and the contradiction of all of that. It made my world fall apart, because a life not lived in freedom, to me, was not a life worth living. Freedom, from a young age, I knew was the most important thing to me. And I do not want you to feel sad for me. It was great adversity that was like a fire under my crucible. So I endeavored to imagine myself as a housewife. Like I had seen my mother and aunts, and they sit together and they knit or crochet and they cook and they talk about the neighbors. I just could not see myself do that and not do anything else and not have purpose and not have meaning or growth. Now imagine I'm speaking as the young girl that I was at that time. I hungered for meaning. I mostly hungered for freedom. You know, I, in myself, felt that I could do anything and that I could conquer the world and that I could become anything and learn anything. I had such a spirit. But it seemed that it was my religion that was holding me back and putting me down. And why? Because I was a girl and God would punish me. I wanted to rebel, but I didn't know how. And that is why today is so important, because I believe that we're now at an age where we have access to information. Ignorance is a choice. And that if we bring awareness to the subject matter, that we can make a big difference and that children can have hope. I continued my life at school best I could. And of course, we started getting older and parties were a little bit later. And I kind of wanted to be there. And I kind of wanted to fall in love, but it was forbidden. So I snuck out and would get caught. And of course, there was a whole society of Muslims around me, and they were just too eager to tell my parents if they saw me with a boy. So when I got caught, I would get beat up heavily, and there was no mercy. And then my father wouldn't talk to me for a while, and then after a while we pretend like everything is normal until I get caught again. I was a good girl with a heavy heart because of that. Because again, I could not imagine a life without freedom. It just didn't make sense to me. So I have no words to describe to you the desperation that a child can feel in such a situation. I cannot describe to you the pain of a spirit that feels unlimited but is chained by the regulations and rules of tradition and religion. I did not understand why women were considered inferior when I felt I could do anything. So one particular afternoon, after I had been punished again for something, I was particularly down and had lost all hope in that moment, and tears and sobbing. And in my desperation, I reached for the phone book and I looked for help. I wanted to call somebody. I wanted someone to get me out. And I didn't know where to turn to, but there was some helpline in the phone book. I don't remember. I called, there was a man on the other side, and I told him my pain. And I wanted him to call somebody to get me out. And when you think things can't get any worse, he says to me, after I ran out of words to say, he says, "Child, do you believe in God?" And I thanked him and hung up. Because it was God, I thought, it was the very reason why I was in the situation that I found myself in. So there was no help. And after all emotion was gone, and I kind of felt numb, there was something very extraordinary that happened to me. And I can only describe it as seeing the light of hope. In the midst of complete hopelessness, I saw a light of hope inside of me. And it beckoned me to continue. And in that moment, something is born that I feel is one of the most important things that I've experienced in my life, which is a will and a spirit that cannot be broken. And even though I didn't know how, or when, or what, or where, I knew I wasn't going to give up. And so I continued my life and just do what I do. School was easy. I learned, I grew. I was a singer. My music was played on the local radio. I was an actress. I was the president of the student council. I was interviewed by the newspaper. I was the valedictorian of my class. I didn't think it was special. It was just who I was. I was able to do anything I put my mind to. And the interesting thing is that the more I accomplished, the prouder my family was of me. And somehow with that, I had gained more freedom. It was an odd, interesting phenomenon. Since the honor of my family was still closely tied to my virtues and sexuality, there was no compromise in that. But I had reached a position in society that I was respected. I wasn't free, but I was respected. And then came the moment after my graduation where I had decided this is enough. And like I said to you before, you have to get married in order to leave your family, and I had decided I'm leaving. And because I had a will that could not be broken and a determination and a focus, and I'd been dreaming this dream for a long time, I left. And the interesting part is that I was prepared for anything, to be held back, disowned, attacked, and none of that happened. And what happened was they were really sad and hurt, and their love was greater than their culture. And that to me was a miracle. I speak to them to this day. They want me to come visit. I am respected as who I am. And it is that key element of love that lives well beyond any religion and any culture in any country. So I had learned to create a reality. And later, as I came to Ramtha School of Enlightenment and I learned to intentionally create reality, I realized that the greatest honor was to be yourself, and that nobody ever told me that except until that point. After long years of searching, when I realized what I was capable of accomplishing, when I trusted my own focus and my own mind, I then found the greatest honor ever. It had been inside of me all along, and it didn't have anything to do with any man, any person, religion, country, or culture. So I was not a victim to my circumstances. I grew out of it, and I had found something that I didn't know I had lost, which was myself. And therein I found dignity. I had made possible what was impossible. And I tell you, I no longer judge God or Allah, religion, my family. I understand them. I do not agree with them, but I understand them and I love them, my family. And I'm still in touch with them. I am now a teacher, and I teach children about the power of focus in their brain. I encourage them to dream big and work towards their accomplishments just like I had done. I know they can because I did. Education is something that is really important because it provides a mirror, a window into that world that is bigger than the places of the past that we have come from. So I am in support of education and to make it accessible to any boy and girl so they grow up to be kind and respectful people, self-confident people. And in that, we will have a different world. And anyone in the future that may be watching this video, and if you feel hopeless and desperate, there are places for you to turn to. And I want you to never give up hope, and I want you to believe in yourself and the power of your own mind and your focus to dream big dreams and to create a reality for you, and a reality for you of a beautiful life into a beautiful future that will be different. We are most certainly working towards that. for ourselves, our children, for all of our community. Thank you.
Now, was that not beautiful, moving, focus, and helping us all to evolve? Sonya, that was great. I know you're back there helping Linda, who's our next speaker, to get the mic. But we want you to know that we appreciate very much what you've said, the kindness and the generosity that she demonstrated by sharing her personal story is very moving. We know it takes courage to look at oneself, and to talk about it publicly takes a lot of courage, and we have to give Sonya another round of applause for sharing her journey with us. Woohoo! 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 Thank you once again, Sonya, on behalf of all of us. It was awesomely great. I got to give her a hug. Hold on, people. Oh, that was beautiful. Beautiful. Ah, yes, very moving. So now we're going to go to our next beautiful speaker, Linda McCallum, also known as Cosmos. So Linda is a very accomplished woman. She has 40 years of experience and service as an intuitive consult. She has been an interviewer, a radio host, a lecturer, and she, for 10 years, was the co-owner of Classy Custom Patent Pet Doors. So she's an entrepreneur as well. She's a long-term student of a Spiritual Mind Academy, known as Ramtha School of Enlightenment. Linda offers her wisdom and her intuitive understanding to increasing the call to see tomorrow in the now. She is a graduate of Cal State University, Northridge. She was an English major. And in her junior year, she received a scholarship to study at the University of Uppsala in Sweden. For the last 20 years, she says, my opportunity has been to offer my counsel to my clients for healing their body, mind, spirit, through a process that is inspired by my intuitive abilities and the tools that I have gained that have greatly assisted me in my personal evolution. This personal alchemy celebrates the return to the divine love and the unlimited consciousness that is our birthright for freedom. When I asked Linda about honor and being a woman, she said, to me, being honorable embodies a spiritual awareness and presence that connects me with all life. What I do to another, I am doing to myself. How I treat myself, I will treat others. As a woman now, I can release the instinctive female need for permission to express greatness. As I practice the art of presence and compassion for those who seek to control women out of their fear of their power, I find forgiveness for them and myself for denying the unlimited spirit that lives within everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, help me to bring Linda on the stage. Linda.
I am so happy to be here tonight. I can't tell you, I think this is such a wonderful way for us to come together. I've wanted to share what I've learned in my journey. I think it's been very meaningful because although the film that you saw was about Muslim women, I was born an Orthodox Jew. And I was raised with very strict concepts of honor and what would bring shame to the family. When I was 4 or 5 years old and it was the Jewish New Year, there is a 10-day period where you atone for your sins. And my sin was I had to figure out how many times I hated my brother. And I had to write that down, because if I didn't remember, God was going to write it down and carry it to the following year, and then I would have even more to remember. So I was a very hypervigilant child, always aware of what I would do that would make God upset. And my father, being so religious, maintained that. When I was 15, actually 15 and a half, we moved from Philadelphia to LA, and I fell in love with a Greek baseball player. And he was the most glorious, handsome, exciting person I'd ever seen. And my father said to me, I want you to know, if you were to ever marry out of your faith, I will cover the mirrors, I will tear my clothes, your name will never be mentioned again in this family. You will have not existed for us. And it was so devastating. I was the firstborn and a bright child, pretty. None of it mattered. I was out. And what was the most painful thing besides the idea of my father betraying me, in terms of believing that he would always be there because he knew everything and he was the direct voice of what God thought was right and wrong, was that it would be about somebody who worshiped God differently. I couldn't work that in my mind. Something happened in me that said, that's just not acceptable. That's just not acceptable, that you are going to give up your daughter and say that I had brought shame to the family because I didn't marry a Jew, and to marry a Christian would mean that I was gone. So something happened internally with me and my thinking process, and a rebellion that I'd never really allowed myself to have became part of me. And then I went on a quest, and I will just finish this part of the story. I cried for 2 days in my room. I wouldn't come out. I wouldn't eat. I just laid there crying. And my father came in at the end of 2 days, and he said to me, all right, I won't disown you. I won't cover the mirrors, sit Shiva for you. But there will never be a day in my life that I will not suffer the pain of your choice. So I looked at how I really felt, and on the one hand, it was good that I had, I could pass go and maybe marry out of my faith without being disowned. The second was the burden of the shame and the guilt. And I became aware of how people accepted that a choice made, any choice of freedom, was interpreted by this God that was male, would determine whether or not I had the right to be happy, be free, explore a new idea. So by the time I was 16, 17 years old, I studied Catholicism, and of course I did it on the side, but I did. And I actually even thought of converting for a while, but there was too many things there that didn't work either. And then I went to Buddhism and just went on a quest. And the quest was, how do I come into my freedom? And interestingly enough, when I was in New York, because I moved to New York, I fell in love with a man that I did eventually marry for 19 years. But this man met me when I owned a personnel agency, which was quite nice for him, he thought. And I became interested in astrology. Well, astrology was absolutely unacceptable. In fact, it was so unacceptable that if the subject came up, he would get up and leave the room to show me his displeasure. But interestingly enough, by this time, that seemed a lot lighter than being disowned. So I said, not only am I going to be an astrologer, but you are going to eat it because I'm going to be one of the best. And interestingly enough, I did become very well known, and he was one of my biggest supporters. But that's the aside. What I was wanting to show you is that in this journey of my younger years, the idea that you had to figure out a way, thank you. That you had to figure out a way to please a man and be free at the same time. And I was good. I mean, I figured out a lot of ways to make it seem that they were being attended to, the men in my life, at the same time working my own sense of freedom. And it took me many years, and actually I would say the most profound part of it was after I met Ramtha, a teacher that really helped me to understand that God was consciousness. God was a spirit that wasn't a personality, and I realized how profoundly trained I was ingrained with the persona of the male as being the voice that said what was right, what was wrong, and also being a woman programmed to be desirable. You have to look a certain way, you have to find ways to be desirable so that you would get married, so that there would be somebody who wanted you. The idea of being alone, I'm in my 70s, so in those days, the idea of being alone without a partner was, you know, you're a spinster. You don't have, and it was all alien. And inside of me was, this is a lie. This is wrong. But until I understood truly that God was spirit of consciousness and combined, gave us, it's like I was asked once, what is God's love? And it was God saying, I am consciousness and energy. I offer this to you. Make of me what you will. This is my gift. And this is what I came to see as the evolution that we're all now coming into. When 2012 happened and we all said, okay, it's the end of separation and the beginning of wholeness and unity, we're moving swiftly. But as we move into this new paradigm, you can see the chaos, you can see the tremendous upheavals and the fear, the huge fear that people have of letting go and trusting themselves. So I had a lot of forgiveness to do. And a lot of the forgiveness was that I had not trusted myself. I had learned the ways of saying things that were more acceptable. I had learned how to communicate in ways that were self-deceptive. And I had to come to terms with it. I had to finally say that I would allow myself to be free and not seek permission to be great, or seek permission to be a fool, or seek permission to absolutely be different. And I understood that one of the reasons why women suffer so is that they have developed willful blindness. Willful blindness says, I won't see your flaw. I'll say it's something else. I'll prop you up and I'll protect you and you'll look better. And when you look better, I'll look better. I will have the proper family. I will have the proper alignment, and I will make excuses for you, and I will make excuses for me, and we won't be telling the truth, but everybody will think that we're doing splendidly. That willful blindness allows for spousal abuse. It allows for parental abuse. It is something that we learned because we're afraid of not being defined by our family, by our friends, by the cultural hierarchy of somebody who says this is how we're supposed to be, this is who we're supposed to look like. The prejudice against women goes across all cultures, and it goes across all religions. I'm touched by what a man has to sacrifice in order to be this kind of oppressor. He has to close off his heart. He has to no longer have compassion for the sadness, the cries of a woman. He has to tell himself that he's the one that decides what's right and what's wrong. The price he pays for that must be extraordinary. I know that was true with my father. My father suffered, died of cancer. My mother had cancer 11 years. My younger sister died of cancer. They all died from that suppression and that absolute inability to be able to authentically share what it was that they really felt, because it had to fit into this image of what is honored in a hierarchy that is created by maybe 1% of the people in the world, those super powerful individuals, whatever name you want to give to them, some side of the Illuminati or the gray men or the tyrants, but we allowed it. We said, we'll cover for you. We'll make you look better. We'll tell you how handsome you are with all your money, and we'll support your causes, because we're afraid of trusting ourselves. I have a phrase I use, I like it a lot. I learned it from Bishop Jakes, really cool guy. He said, forgiveness is a decision, but trust is a construction. I find it profound, because when we break trust with another, you can't just give it back. It takes time. You have to build it again. And when you destroy trust with yourself, when you lie to yourself and you say it's okay, it's all right that that person hurt me. It's all right that they abused my trust. It's all right that they lied to me. I understand it was hard for them. No, it's not all right. It's not all right when I do it, and it's not all right when they do it. And if it is true that in standing for myself, I stand alone, that's an illusion. I'm never alone. No one is ever alone. We are always connected, and we always belong to something so much greater than ourselves. I was honored when Renee asked me to be a part of this, because I so support her dream. I support everyone's dream that wants to bring us together with a new mind and a new attitude, and the opportunity for us to remember what it is to honor ourselves and know if we can dream the dream the way Sonya did of freedom, or the way I did when I questioned religion and questioned a God that could just kill people because they were in his way. I mean, what kind of God is that that I'm praying to? But I had no other. I had nothing else to go to. And what I've discovered in my sojourn is we never give up what's wrong until we have something that works for us better, because we always do what works for us. So I say thank you so much for allowing me to share. I believe we're in a precious time right now. And as hard as it is with all the chaos, with the sun flares and the wars and the environmental problems, We are dreamers. We're creators. We know how to envision. And in that vision, we're learning how to let go and just go. And in that, we'll be led. I know it. Thank you so much.
Now everybody knows that this is a little small town. Most people don't know that we exist. But I think you will all agree with me, we have some powerful women in this place. And with that, I would like to tell you that we will, as I mentioned earlier, be having more of these talks, these events around the issue of women. If any of you would like to speak on any topic, please let me know. And if you want to suggest a topic that we might want to consider, let us know that as well. And you could also go on our website, on our Facebook page, and you could post that information, requesting it. But of course, you can reach out to us right here in front of you in the community, because I know from my experience of being here, and I moved here in 2007, that there are many great minds in this Yelm share, the Shire. There are great men in this audience. There are great men in this town. The fact that many of us go to RSC could be a coincidence, but having said that, great minds are in this place. And once again, share with me in honoring Linda McCallum for a great, passionate speech about her journey.
Woohoo! Linda, give me a hug. I want a hug. You know I'm a hugger.
Thank you so much.
By the way, I'm giving the hugs for all of us. Those hugs are just not for me. I know you're feeling what I'm feeling, so the hug is for all of us. Let's give both girls a round of applause so far. Our third and final speaker. Now, I did not have the pleasure at all of knowing Margaret. I didn't know her at all. Linda recommended her to me and said that she would be a great speaker. She's a lovely, beautiful woman. Look at those eyes. And so when Linda told me that she had the perfect person to make number 3, because originally I was speaking and I decided I didn't want to speak, I wanted to moderate and make the evening happen. And so Linda suggested that she had the perfect person. So our third speaker is the perfect person. So Margaret Granger was born and raised in North Carolina. She says, and I quote, "But I was never from the South. You can be in something, but not be of something." In other words, she doesn't want to have that Southern heritage. She was a student at the Lee Strasberg Academy Institute in New York. She worked for 12 years as an actress in film, television, and the theater. She also spent 15 years working as a television and film producer, as a script supervisor, and a makeup artist. She spent 25 years working in the healing arts in the US, Canada, and in England. When I asked her about honor and being a woman, Margaret states, and I quote, "The possibilities and potentials for a woman to know her own honor and value in this time are ripe with discovery. The courage and strength that is asked of us on this journey is fraught with adversity and opportunity. My deepest desire for myself and all women taking this unknown path is that we find our way out of the darkness of fear and unworthiness into the fullness of our power and our love." Ladies and gentlemen, help me in welcoming Margaret Granger.
Thank you. I am really happy to be here, and I am honored to be part of this. These beautiful women, all of you, and you. This is the first time I've spoken about what I'm going to talk about, and I'm a little nervous, so I might have to refer to my notes, but I'm going to do it. Okay. I want to talk about, well, first let me say, I want to share what I've learned and what I'm learning about honoring myself. And the topic tonight that I want to talk about is family secrets, shame, and honor. And I'd like to go back a couple of years. That's where I'd like to start. A couple of years ago, I got very sick, and I started having panic attacks that were so intense. The fear and the terror that came over me was like nothing I had ever known, and I had no idea why it was happening. It would wake me up in the middle of the night, and I wouldn't be able to breathe. I wouldn't be able to sleep. I was sick, and I was so afraid, and it was just eating me up. While this was happening, I found Ramtha's book, A Master's Key to Manipulating Time. And he talked about in that book how sometimes when you need to change, you need to walk away from everything and let your life dissolve and reform. And I realized as I was suffering with all my fear and terror and wanting to run, that I wasn't happy, that I didn't like what I created, and I needed to change. And I didn't see any other way to do that but to pull all my energy out of everything in my life and go and be alone, which was huge because I was married. I had my husband's son living with us, who I love. I love my husband. I had the garden. It was summer. It was full on. My mother-in-law was coming to live on the property. It's a family property. It's beautiful. There was every reason to be excited, and all I wanted to do was run. And I didn't understand. It didn't matter. It was on me, and I had to deal with it. So I took a friend's offer, and I went and stayed in a little trailer on her property. It didn't have any power. It didn't have any water. It had some mice. I took my cat. She was my protector. I was in there at night. All right, good girl. So I went to the trailer, and basically I didn't take anything but a few clothes, my journal, myself. And I just faced myself. It wasn't easy because I had so much unworthiness come up. I had no idea I had so much unworthiness and fear. And at this time, I forgot to say that I still worked because I work in healing, and when I work, I can put myself aside. So I was able to still work, and when I came home to the trailer, I began my work. I did my cards, I did field work, I did my list, I wrote in my journal. I did everything I knew to come to terms with what was coming up in me. And I did 21 days, and it wasn't enough. So I did it for 40 some days. And during that time, I found a lot of self-love because I had the courage to go in there and face it and not like conquer it. That didn't work for me. I had to love myself. I had to love the fact that I was walking into the hell of my mind and staying there until I understood. And one day I came home after work and I opened the trailer and I knew it was finished because everything looked old. It just looked done. And I thought, if I stay here one more minute, I'm hiding. But up to that moment, I would have been hiding. But up to that moment, I was truly doing what was righteous for me, which was removing myself from everything so I could understand. So I knew it was time to go home, which was really awkward because I had left a bomb where I lived. My family didn't understand. I didn't understand. And they were hurt. I had broken trust. Talk about trust. I had broken trust. I had done something totally out of character for me. I'm a total nurturer. I love to cook. I love to everything. And I just pulled up stakes and went alone for 40 days. So I came home, and yes, it was hard. But what had happened was I had changed. So my reality had changed. And we were clear, my family and I, that we loved each other and we wanted to move forward. So we did. And it was a work in progress. It doesn't happen like a light switch, but it happened, and it was nice. And I was starting to feel, whew, okay, I did it. Until about 6 months later, when it came on 100 times stronger, which I couldn't have believed the first time because I thought this has got to be as bad as it could possibly get. But it was 1,000,000 times worse, not 100, 1,000,000 times worse. And I was totally confused because I thought, what is this? I've already done this. Why is this on my plate again? But it was. And I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would be pinned to the bed with fear. And I would be like, oh my God, what are you so afraid of? And this voice in my head would say, everything, everything. I'm scared to get up. I'm scared to go outside. I'm scared to call anybody. I'm scared. And he's like, okay, but what? That's what it was. It was just like that. And I got really sick again. I couldn't eat. My hair started falling out. I mean, it was just like a nightmare. And interestingly, while this was all going on, I started to have memories about my childhood, which I never remembered my childhood. And little things, oh my God, I remember that, and this, and then all of a sudden, I remembered walking in on my father sexually molesting my brother when I was 3. And I remembered him threatening me and saying, don't tell your mother. And I remember being just absolutely scared out of my mind. And also, I felt so bad. I felt so bad because I couldn't do anything. And I felt like I should. I felt helpless. And yet I felt so responsible. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. Even at that age, I took their pain. I took their pain because I felt like that's something I can do. Okay, this is shame because shame doesn't want me to tell you, and I'm going to. So I'm going to look at my notes now. Okay. So one of the things that I understood once this started happening, that feeling, other than the fear, there was this awful feeling that would come over me. And around this time, I found this woman, Renee Brown. You may know her, but she's an amazing researcher, and her main topic is shame. And she helped me because she defined that shame, the difference between shame and guilt is you did something bad, and shame is you're bad. And that was what I was experiencing. And I've learned, while I was going through this, 2 things really important that helped me. One is that when you're in shame, it totally goes past your yellow brain. Your analytical brain, it doesn't even go there. It goes straight into your survival, into fight or flight. And that's why I always wanted to run when it came over me, because I was totally washed in shame. And the other thing that I understood that I never knew was that your brain doesn't know the difference between a small trauma and a large trauma. And they define that, this is another research program, that a large trauma would be like a car wreck, and a small trauma would be like being embarrassed at school because you messed up and everybody saw you. Your brain doesn't know the difference. They both are the same, and they go in the part of the brain where your childhood memories are stored. So when you have a trauma that's shameful, you're 3 years old. I was 3 years old when that was coming up in me. And that really helped me because I was so afraid and I felt so lost. So Again, shame is warning me not to talk, and I'm going to. Another thing that I learned about shame, which is really funny, because Renee is so smart, and she wrote me, I want you to write some salient points for your intro. And I thought, I don't know what salient means, so I had to go on the internet and look it up. And it was, what's important to you? I thought, I can do that. So I wrote out my bio, and then I thought, well, while I'm on the computer, why don't I look up shame? Good idea. So I look up shame, and then it says the opposite of shame, or shame and dishonored. And then it has this word. I look, shame is the opposite of honor, which I did not know. So for weeks leading up to this talk, I was agonizing over, I don't have anything to say because everything I have to say is about shame and doesn't have anything to do with honor. Until I realized it has everything to do with honor. That this is honor, speaking up, breaking the bond that I had when my father told me not to tell. And I remembered that when I was in the first grade, we had to do safety slogans. And so we all had our safety slogans, and so it was going to go on the radio. So my father comes in because he's on the radio, and he's going to be the one recording them. So he comes in and puts his microphone in my face, say your safety slogan. I couldn't speak. I couldn't utter a syllable. And I had no idea, my entire life, I had no idea why I couldn't do that. Because when that happened and I walked in on them, I repressed that. And there's a difference between repressing and suppressing. Suppressing, you know it, but you push it down. Repressing, it happens, and you bury it, and you don't know it's there. And I did not know that that happened until the last year, when the memory came up. And what I learned from that, I know I'm jumping around, but bear with me. This is my first time. So having said that about the repression, one of the things that I learned was the little girl that walked in that room that had that experience, basically, I shut her down. I locked her out. And until she started coming up, I didn't know she existed. But once I did, I thought, once I found out what happened, I thought, okay, why can't I know now what it is, why can't I just get over it? I couldn't, because that part of me was coming up because it wanted to be loved. It wanted to be brought back into my heart. And that isn't something that you can just do. And again, when I did start doing that, I would think, okay, I did it, and then it would come up again. And so what I want to say is I've learned that it takes as long as it takes, and that to love something of yourself that you've totally ostracized, and to be willing to go through the pain. I mean, the pain of facing that, of feeling what I didn't ever let come back into me, has been so enormous and such a gift. I won't miss that part. So I want to say that with that, as I began to love her and to bring her into my heart and to understand the shame I felt and the responsibility, even though I was only 3, it doesn't matter. I felt responsible. I even called my brother when I found out and said, I'm so sorry. I couldn't help you. I am so sorry. But shame demands secrecy and silence. And that was my covenant. And when I began to unwind this, that was why I wanted to do this talk, because I'm going to speak it out loud and own it. My power, my energy, no more. So I'm doing that. Thank you. Thank you very much. say, too, that one of the things that was really important for me was when all this was happening, I was so afraid of my own fear that it would just absolutely annihilate me when it would come up. And when I finally got to the point, through working, through facing, through not running away, when I finally got to the point where I wasn't afraid of my own fear anymore, I knew I had turned a corner, and I had. So, I want to say, it's my greatest honor to be here. Thank you for listening to my story. I want to say, if anything has touched you, I want to encourage you, never give up. Never give up. Because the gifts are so worth it. I am experiencing joy like I have never experienced. I feel like I'm the 3-year-old that's now starting to have a life. I'm excited, I'm playful, I'm doing new things, I'm watercoloring, I'm blossoming. And I would never have done that. I would never have this experience right now if I hadn't stood with it. Even when it was hard. Even when people said to me, why don't you just get over it? It's nothing. Move on. I couldn't. And I'm glad I didn't. Because what I have is mine. And it will always be mine, and it's only going to get better. Before I go, I just want to say, if anyone has any interest in Brene Brown, she's a wonderful, wonderful researcher. She has brought so much light on shame. She has 2 talks, TED Talks, and you can go on the computer. One's on shame and one's on unworthiness, but they are beautiful. And if any of you have no connection to what I'm talking about, I understand. 4 years ago, I would have been you. I would have thought, oh, poor thing. But I was sitting there with a big old monster in my pocket, and I didn't know it. So good night, and thank you so much.
Well, I think you will all agree that was perfect number 3. Hasn't this been absolutely dynamic? Hasn't it been dynamic to see what women in the world are sharing and going through, and see what our women in the West are going through as well, and the journey that we share and the power that is within us? And if we look within, we can see our necromancers, our demons, and cut those heads off. Isn't it beautiful? Let's give our 3 speakers another round of applause. Sonya, Linda, and Margaret.
Oh, this is beautiful.
Well, I don't think I need to give a synopsis of their talk, which is usually what moderators do, but what I want to do right now is to take questions. If any of you have any questions for any of the presenters, they're here ready to listen to what you have to say, more importantly, what you would like them to say. So please feel free, ask your question, and I'll repeat it because you won't have a mic. So in that case, if nobody has any questions to ask, I will ask the audience a question. Can any of you tell me what was the most poignant thing, I think I can use the word poignant, thing that happened tonight that made you happy, glad, enjoy, not sadness, of what you heard and learned today? Can somebody volunteer to tell me that? Otherwise, I'm going to choose somebody. All right, Father Mihol, unfortunately, I'm going to call on you to represent the men in the audience. So I would love to hear from you, Father Mihol. It would be very precious if you could contribute to the conversation. Thank you. I think most of you know Father Mihol. He's a very eminent member of this community. He has an opinion on most things. And
not when you're around.
And this would be wonderful to hear what he has to say about the evening and about the contribution of our beautiful sisters.
Thank you so much, Renee.
Well,
It was a very powerful evening. Unfortunately, somehow I had missed the fact that it was on. But thank you for sending me a message to remind me. But it was a very powerful evening. In the first section of tonight, I was absolutely horrified, even though it was confined to Muslim ladies. And of course, I knew that this was happening, but I didn't realize, number one, the intensity and the depth of it and the wide scale on which it's happening apparently. But then to have your sublime choice pick out a Muslim speaker, a Jewish speaker, and a Catholic speaker to reflect precisely the same realities in each of these three major faiths that all go back to Jehovah. That was extremely powerful to me. And when you opened the proceedings this evening and you said, ladies and gentlemen, I thought I was the only man in the audience. And 6 others rescued me from a fate of bottomless perdition. So anyway, obviously, some of us care deeply. But I think the really intensely personal sharing, which I'm sure must be very painful for all of you to do, is something that we deeply appreciate and will benefit from enormously. So thank you both, Sonya and Linda and Margarita. It was a privilege to hear your sharing tonight.
Thank you.
And thank you for everything.
Thank you,
that you've
Miho.
learned.
Thank you.
You for organizing.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, it's such an honor and a privilege to be here, and thank you all for your sharing. The reason I wanted to come up here, because I have struggled a lot with shame, and today is, I really feel proud that I can stand here and talk to you, and thank you for bringing this together and talking about something which is so embedded in our culture, in just being who we are as women. And it's not just for one religion or another, but it impacts women all over the world. So thank you. 3 things I wanted to say. Number 1, Sonya, I am so moved and I loved your definition of what honor is. And I never really thought of honor in terms of just embracing all of who you are. And so that was a great takeaway. Thank you. Margaret, I wanted to thank you for your talk. Every single word you said, I experienced it. And I thought it was just me. But clearly it isn't. And just like you, I would have those panic attacks. And I would be like, oh my God. And I would feel this fear and I couldn't understand where is it coming from. And it would just leave me paralyzed. And every single time, and Dr. Terry can attest to this, and I'd be like, I thought it was done. It's again, and again, and again, and it just comes in layers. So guys, if anyone is going through it, just stay with it, because one day you're just gonna get it. And one day you'll be like, it's gone. And I don't have to hide, and I can just be and share with everyone. And as I share my light, I give courage for every woman to just own and just shine like a light. And also, Linda, thank you for your talk. And the last thing that I wanted to add and say was, it's important for women to be educated. It's important for women to learn and to speak their truth, and it only comes when we all share our stories. But taking from Renee Brown, whose work I have loved, changed my life. If she has 4 million views, 100 are from me. So that's much how her work impacted me. But on the same topic, one of the things Renee says, when we don't educate men, we don't move ahead as a society. So educating women is great, but educating men and bringing them and having them as a part of this conversation is just as important. So everyone who goes home tonight, I wish and I intend and I hope that you not just only share this with women in your circle and with women in your at work, with your colleagues, but also bring men into this conversation and ask them to have those deep, authentic conversations with their women, with their children, with their sisters, and talk about something and connect with each other, with their heart, so we together can heal one another. Thank you so much.
Oh, Karen.
Wow, well, looks like I have another speaker for the next event, Karen. That was beautiful. I knew Karen would be touched because Karen was brought up in India, and she also was brought up Sikh. So I know this was very personal for her, and I also know the journey that she's been through. So I'm very proud of you, kiddo. You're going to be a next speaker. Give Karen a round of applause. Beautiful. Would anybody else like to share? This is a moment for you to have the courage to come up to the mic and say something and feel safe with this group. Miho would like to say something. Father Miho is going to add something.
If there's nobody else speaking, I think one of the major things of the many that came up from this presentation is the irreparable damage almost that has descended on the human race, especially in these three examples from the three great religions of the West, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The immense damage that's being done in terms of disempowerment of the human that comes from imagining that God is like a human being. And if we're living here on this Hertzian plane and whatever God is at point zero, the one thing that God is not is any kind of human being, however enlarged. But the damage has come from regarding God as a human being with some of the worst, traits of male human beings removed, but infinitely worse traits put in their place. As anyone who reads the accounts that we have of the God of these three religions tells us so powerfully. So if we understand that most of the problems that we have, that we can't manifest, we know all the stuff, and we're trying to do this and we're trying to create that, and nothing happens. We're spinning our wheels in the ice and the snow. It's basically because we have imagined God to be a being like ourselves. Mm-hmm. And worse still, we have imagined God to be a male being like ourselves. Mm-hmm. So one of the worst traits, I suppose, that we all suffer from in humanity is the fact that the feminine has been so despised in all of our traditions, and that somehow divinity or Godhead is the exact opposite, or a male version of it. Whereas in fact God is neither of these, but infinitely removed. And until we can get down, as Margarita mentioned, down to those recesses of the mind where these programs are playing out, until we can get down there and remove those programs, nothing that we can consciously do is going to affect a modicum of improvement. So thank you all for bringing that to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. This was a wonderful evening. I want to thank especially the speakers. Oh my God, they're shining, they're so beautiful, and I love them. Aren't they beauties? Come on. And Paulina, come up and let's honor you, Paulina. And thank Paulina as well, my co-creator. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute, built to suit a fashion model size. But when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. Oh, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride in my steps, the curve